Welcome to another episode of NSX-T Ninja videos with me, myself, Ivan. So today's video is going to be about certificates. So on the NSX-T managers, let's draw three nodes again. 1, 2, 3. And these are the NSX-T Manager Nodes. And these are three NSX-T Manager Nodes. What is important to mention here is that there's no light. Okay. Hi, welcome to another video of NSX Ninja with me, Ivan. Today's video is going to be about certificates, SSL certificates. So whenever we deploy NSX-T Manager Nodes, let's draw 1, 2 and 3. Let's assume that they are in a cluster. When we deploy these nodes, there is going to be a self-signed certificate on these hosts. Well, if we want to change this, we need to perform a few steps. So what we need to have is a certificate authority. In this video, this certificate authority is going to be a Microsoft service. The first step that we need to do when we want to deploy or integrate a CA signed certificate is we need to create a CSR. So that's step 1. Step 1 is CSR creation. When we have created these CSRs, this can be done with multiple tools, and in my video I'm going to show you how this is done with the vCenter server appliance. Whenever this CSR has been created, we need to sign these certificates that are generated with the proper fully qualified domain names of, and I think we need for this we need 4 times CSRs. So one for node 1, one for node 2, one for node 3, and the other one is going to be for the VIP FQDN. So whenever that is done, we need to take these certificates that are created and bring those into the CA, and we need to sign the certificates. So whenever they're signed over there, basically what the CA will give you is a signed certificate, and to also give you a key file, and that signed certificate, including the key file, is going to need to be imported into the NSX-T manager. So next step would be import signed certs in NSX. Well, when we have done that, I think it's important to mention that we need to execute or reference or basically point to this new certificates. So basically, let's call it point to new certs. Well, that's done with API calls, and I can tell you that for the single nodes 1, 2 and 3 there's different API call, and for the it's basically the same API call, but you need to make sure that you send the API call to the specific corresponding manager, and for the VIP there is a different API call, and in that case it doesn't matter to which one you point it or send the API call to, but I'll always point it to the VIP FQDN. When that's done, I guess our final step is test in the browser. Test in browser. Yeah, so when we've tested that, we can see that the connection is now trusted. And in this video, I will show you how to do all the steps up until testing. So let's go.
So the first thing that we're going to do is to configure a Microsoft server to be the root certificate authority. So I have a Windows 19 server and I just going to add a new role, and the role is going to be the actual Active Directory certificate services. Hit next, leave this one default, and we need to check all of these check buttons here. And I just want to make sure that my server restarted whenever that's required. So let's start installing these services. Now I'm going to fast forward a little bit because this takes a while. Not really that long, but still takes a while. So whenever that's done, we see exclamation mark over there, and we need to make sure we configure the Active Directory uh, credentials configuration here. So let's start with the first two, the certificate authority role and the web. Um, yeah, we want to configure an enterprise CA. So let's also root CA, and we want to create a new private key for that. And the requirements for that, or I guess specs for that, we just leave this default. And I'm not going to change the common name, everything default. And eventually let's configure it, and once it's configured properly, we should see two check boxes over the check marks. Now we also need to configure additional roles, the web service and the policy web service. Now let's hit next, and we want to Windows integration. Um, in order for a service account, we need to make sure that the service account is part of a specific group. Now, I want to make my administrator account part of that group, so I don't want to create an additional user. For security reasons, you probably should create a separate user for this, but for now, I'm just going to add my admin user just for to make it a little bit more easy to that group. So that group is called IIS. And then I users. Well, you can see it over there. I've added it to my admin user, and now I'm capable of doing it or adding that account as a service account for my certificate services. So let's type the account name in with the password, and let's see if it's accepting it, and it does. So now let's leave everything default for now. Select this and configure. And now our certificate server is actually ready. So we can do a quick check and go to Active Directory Certificate Services. And if we go to our tools, we can see Certificate Authority as well. And in Certificate Authority, we can see that there's something there. So let's do a quick check. We need to make sure that our hash algorithm is SHA-265, and we also need to export our root certificate. This is something you will need in the later stage, but for now, let's export it to our desktop and just call it, give it a name. Yeah, let's export the key. Now, well, it was successfully exported. Let's do a quick verification if we can find it. If it's really there. Let's open the notepad and guess we should be able to see our root C. So this is just a sample or a lab environment. Never show your root certificate to on a video. So now that's done. We are going to verify uh, the Microsoft CA server to see if it's really working. So let's go to the website HTTPS, and then let's go to localhost, and then cert srv, which we will need later on to sign our certificate. Let's see if that works. And funny enough, it's an unsecured connection as well. But anyway, you can see that our GUI is working. So now that's tested. We need to prepare our Microsoft CA for the actual certificate signing for NSX-T certificate. So the way how we do this is the NSX-T certificate needs to be signed in a specific way, or yeah, with specific parameters. So we can go to templates, and then we can select the web server, and we need to duplicate that template, and we need to make sure that this certificate authority is compatible with Windows 2008 R2 servers. Now the other thing is the recipient should be compatible with at least Windows 7 and Windows 2008 R2 as well. So let's hit OK, and now that's done. Let's do a quick check. Yeah. Uh, in terms of the extensions, we need to do the basic constraints and enable the basic constraint extension. This is really required for NSX-T. Now that's done. I guess we need to change the name for the template to make it something nice. So for example, NSX-T and then SSL cert. That would be a nice name for a template. Hit OK. We can see it over there now. So once we've created a template, we need to add it in here. We need to select new, and we need to scroll down to the new N60 SSL cert. See it over there. Select, hit OK, and then we will have it in the list over there, so we can use it. Make sure again that our hash algorithm is SHA-256. Now, when we've done this, next step would be that we need to create the CSRs. So for each NSX node and the VIP, we need to create a CSR. The way how I'm creating a CSR is by using or actually abusing the vCenter server for that. Within the vCenter server, there's a way to manage its own certificates, and I'm not going to use for the certificate of the VCSA, but I'm just going to abuse it for generating new CSRs for another machine. So here you can do that by selecting one and then one again, and then we need to provide a directory. My idea is to, for each NSX-T manager, let's use a separate directory. And here we can see that the directory for this N16 manager doesn't exist, so I need to create it. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to create. Let me first browse into to see what's available in terms of directories. So var/tmp/VMware should be available there by default. So let's go into it. So that's fine. So let's go. And now let's make the directory. And yeah, we're going for each NSX-T Manager node, we're going to create a directory. This is going to be 2, the 3, and for the VIP as well. And we're going to use these directories to actually generate the CSRs and put this into these directories. So let's log in and generate certificate. Yeah, 1. And the path for the first node. And as you can see, some of the parameters were already filled in, like the Netherlands, CA, my company name VMware, and VMware PSO, where I live. the city, and eventually what's also important is to, well, it's optional, but to just use the IP address of the specific node. And here you can see that I'm using the fully qualified domain name or the host name of that specific node. Now it is done. We start the process all over again, and this is a fast forward. We will do it for the 3 remaining fully qualified domain names. And I guess one important thing is when we sign the VIP, so we've done the second and the third node of the NSX-T Manager. When we come to the VIP, there's something important that we need to specify here. Is I guess the first part is all the same. Um, now the country, we're all leaving those default. Where it becomes exciting is here we specify the VIP address, our VIP IP address, and where it gets, I guess, different from the other nodes is that we also need to use subject alternative names or SANs. And here we specify your VIP qualified, fully qualified domain name, and for the FQDN for all of your 3 other nodes. So here you can see what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all fully qualified domain names that I've specified for the NSX-T Manager here, right? That's important. Um, Now let's give it the proper name. And now that everything has been saved, we need to make sure. So let's hit enter to generate this certificate. And now we're finished with the actual CSR, I guess CSR generation. Now let's do a quick check in the directory to see if they are actually there. Here we can see the directories which we've just created. And let's use WinSCP to log into the vCenter server appliance and retrieve all of those actual certificates. So let's save this session for now. Also, in order to SFTP into the VCSA, you need to have a special setting over there. So let's make sure we have that in there. Protocol options. Just specify a specific shell. Let's hit OK, and starting from now, we would be able to log in to the vCenter server appliances using SFTP. And it's authenticating now. Let's hope it works. And it does. So now we've logged in. I think it's important to browse to the actual folder. It was VMware, I guess. var slash VM, no, yeah, temp VMware. And here we can see that we have our 4 directories there. So let's go and browse through our desktop. And make sure that we will copy the actual files or folders to those desktops. So let's keep a nice folder structure. NSX-T CSRs. Now let's put every CSR into that folder. And I think they should be there. So let's take a look. And they are there. So now that's, let me quickly verify all folders. Yeah, perfect. So our next step is that these CSRs need to be signed by the root CA. So we're going to take these certificates and sign it on the root CA. So the way how to do that is go to the website of the certificate authority, choose advanced signing, and What you do basically is open the cert in Notepad and copy it, and make sure that you copy the content into that field over there. And we select our template that we just created at the beginning of the video, and we send certificate. Well, now it's time to download the actual certificate. I didn't know what format I needed to download, so I just downloaded them all. So first of all, I did the base 64. Just create a separate folder with signed, not to confuse it with non-signed CSRs. Um, so I guess the first one is the there and the there with the full chain, or the DR with the full chain, and also the base 64. So actually you only need this one here, the base 64. Um, you will see that later in the video. But I actually needed this only, and the certificate chain wasn't really required. But I downloaded it anyway because it's annoying to come back to this in a later stage when you find out that you may have forgotten something. But anyway, now we've got every possible site cert for the first node. We're now going to do the same for the second, the third, and the fifth node. So this is a little bit of fast forward again, because the process is actually the same. And eventually, when everything's finished, we can go over to the CA and actually look at the signed certificates. To have everything, I guess, nicely in the folders, I think it's good to also copy the root certificate and place it with this other signed certificates. So just to have it in one place. Let's have it in there. You know what? I think it's better to just create a separate folder for that. Let's do that. Root CA certificate. I guess this is the root CA. And let's copy that in or move that in. Next step would be that we just sign the certificates. We need to import these signed certificates, including the key, to the NSX-T Manager. Well, how's that done? We just browse to the NSX-T Manager and log in, obviously. And let's go to the system and certificates. And here we have the possibility to upload the content on the certificate. So first of all, let's import the CA certificate because we have that available anyway. So let's call that. Let's give it a name. And we can browse to the actual CA certificate. Before we do that, this is not a service certificate, so we can just edit now. We're using it for load balancer or a VPN connection. So let's browse to the CA cert. And let's select it, hit import, and the CA cert is imported right now. So quick shout out to one of my other colleagues, Jan Simonet. He helped me out with this process, trying to understand it. So before we're going to import certificate, it's important to open Notepad for all four certs for each node, and the signed certs we need to open it, the base64, and we need to make sure that we copy that into a notepad. Why is this important? Because we also need to add in the root certificate details in there. So this is the signed certificate, and well, first of all, we need to let's do it for all of them. So again, big shout out for Jan Simonet, one of my colleagues. He helped me out with some of the processes here to understand those, because it's not very documented very well. So let's continue with the copy of the certificates. Again, the third one. You see what I'm doing? I'm just copying the content of the signed certificate and I'm pasting that into a separate text file. This is the last one, the VIP FQDN cert. Now let's paste it in there. And I mentioned before, now our last step is to go to the root CA and let's browse to the root CA and take the content of that root certificate. And this is, we need to copy that into or paste that in each certificate or and add it in the last bit or actually add the root certificate after the actual initial certificate. Let's do a quick check. Yeah, it's there. There's there as well. That's good. So now we can start importing the actual this complete certificate. So we need to do it on a per server basis. But we can add it. So we first need to add in the certificate for the first FQDN. And what's important is that we should also select the private key, and the private key was also saved. So you can see why it is important to keep a proper directory structure with proper names, because otherwise you may select the wrong certificate, and which will screw up your whole NSX deployment or certificate deployment. Eventually, I did a fast forward for all of them because they're all the same. And now we need to activate the actual certificates. As you can see, they're all there now. And the way how we activate the certificates or use the certificates is to create or to do an API call. Now let's do an API call for the first one. The first thing is we should first look if API is working. Now this is a API call just to quickly check if it's working to the VIP. That's not working, so I need to do a quick setting. I need to change SSL enforcement off here. And now let's do it again. And the status is 200 OK, and we can see that I'm getting an output here. That means that my API calls are working. So, well, at least we can see our cluster are stable. So our next step will be verifying the certificates. The moment I tried that, let me see. So now there's a step in between. We need to copy the ID of the certificate and execute an API call against that. So here we need to paste in the ID, and action is validate, and here we can see that there's an error. Certificate was rejected. Couldn't. So in order to, well, that error has an KB, and in that KB it tells you to actually disable the, well, certificate revocation list. So here you can see that the CRL checking is set to true. We need to copy that and copy the full output. In the KB you only need a part, but that didn't work. So shout out to Dennis Derks who told me that I needed to have the full uh, uh, API output or code. So change it to false, and let's hit send. And you can see that that changes setting to false, so the CRL check is no longer done. So now we're ready to do another check on the cert. Let's go back to Postman and validate the certificate. And here we can see the status is okay, so our cert is okay. Now, in order just to, for sanity sake, let's verify all of the certificates just to make sure they're all okay, that we're not running into any problems. That one's okay as well. So that's good. Another one okay, and let's do it for the third one, third node. And this is all fine. So now what's important is that we need to do a post, and we're going to actually point to, or assign the current certificate to the correct manager. So the way how that works is that we need to have the proper NSX-T Manager FQDN. So the first one, we're going to use the first FQDN of the first node, right? And then we're going to post the API call against that specific NSX-T Manager, and we're going to use obviously the right certificate that is corresponding with that node. Um, so let's select the certificate ID, and I guess we need to add some more in. No, we're not. So let's hit send, and this sending is taking a while. I think it took almost half a minute for this particular one. Well, this same thing we also need to do for the other two NSX nodes. So let's fast forward a little bit because the process is exactly the same. Um, for the VIP address, however, it's going to be a little bit different. So now that we've done the first, second, and third NSX-T node, and we've pointed to the SSL certs, this is now the the VIP address, and for the VIP address we need to, with the API call is a little bit different. And I just want to show you that. Now the VIP address, I'm also executing that against the VIP fully qualified domain name, even though you will hit one of the managers. I think it's the proper structured way to do this. So this API call looks a little bit different than the ones for the nodes. Again, we need to have the ID of the certificate. So let's select that and copy paste that into the actual request or the actual post request. And let's hit send. And this also takes a while. Well, here, this one was actually pretty fast, within a few seconds actually. So now let's go into the VIP address, and here you can see there's a little lock over there. And that lock indicates that there's no longer unsecured. Now the connection is secured, right? Certificate's valid and everything works out. So this is for the VIP. Now let's test this out for the individual nodes. Again, there's a log over there. And let's try it for this, the first NSX-T node. Log over there, connection is secure. Now let's try the other two as well. Let's first start with the third one, whatever. Let me try one. And let's see again for the third NSX-T Manager. Now our last one to test out is the second one. So let's go to the second one. And also let me move that around. Now we see for the third one, we see a little lock over there as well. Connection is secure, everything's valid. Let's just browse quickly into the cert. And we can see it's kind of checking out, right? So that's it, okay. Now I think the second one still needs to be checked. And also there's a lock over there on the second and the 16 manager node.